Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. The Bigger Picture, only on Money FM 89.3.
That's right. Welcome to The Bigger Picture with me, Emaad, Akhtar. China has been pushing for more people to visit since reopening its borders in early 2023. This after its zero COVID policies appeared for a time as though they might drive the country into a lasting isolation. Fast forward to 2025, inbound tourism numbers have really started to proliferate. To find out what's driving these numbers and more, I'm pleased to welcome on the line Lavinia Rajaram, Asia travel expert at Expedia Group. Good morning, Lavinia.
Good morning.
Nice to have you on. Now, as mentioned, the inbound tourism numbers have really been booming in the first 6 months of this year. Shanghai alone receiving 2.6 million overseas visits in the first half of the year, half of which were visa-free entries. That's a 45% year-on-year increase. What's behind the recent surge? What measures have the Chinese government put in place to incentivize foreigners to travel over?
Yeah, firstly, we're definitely seeing China back on the global tourism map for 2025. After a really strong post-pandemic rebound, China is seeing this surge, both domestic and inbound tourism, with local governments investing heavily in infrastructure and cultural experiences to attract these global travelers. So 3 different examples that I could source here. Firstly, the unilateral visa-free entry to citizens from over, 47 countries or so, including Singapore and Japan, for stays up to 30 days has certainly attracted international and regional arrivals. Secondly, the 240-hour, which is 10-day visa-free transit policy, which has been expanded to more than 54 countries and over 60 ports, allowing for easier short-term visits into China. And then, we look at the boost in international flight connectivity as well. Over 6,000 international flights now land in China on a weekly basis. This is significantly improving access from Southeast Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, with direct routes to major cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Chengdu, which have reduced the travel friction for both, leisure and business travelers. And lastly, I think with any tourism effort, additional government incentives and promotions for example, the Chinese government has allocated over 1 billion yuan in tourism subsidies and launched over 6,000 promotional campaigns to attract these foreign visitors. And these include cultural festivities, discounted travel packages, and hospitality upgrades. So it's really rebounding, and I think the world is responding positively to it.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned a rise in interest in cultural experiences. No shortage of cultural experiences in the likes of Tier 1 cities like Shanghai and Beijing. But are we seeing a rise in numbers beyond such cities? Earlier this year, I'll just cite something I read online. Local officials reportedly announced goals of bringing in at least 400 million annual visits to the region of Xinjiang, which is the Uyghur Autonomous Region under Western sanctions, by 2030. So are we seeing perhaps a little bit more interest in such regions?
Yes, there is a clear and strategic push to expand tourism beyond China's Tier 1 cities like Shanghai and Beijing. And this includes ambitious plans for regions like Xinjiang, which is increasingly positioned as a major tourism growth engine despite its geopolitical sensitivities. There's also the rise of secondary cities, or what Expedia would term as detour destinations, like Chengdu, Hangzhou, Hebei, that would have been officially ranked as new first-tier cities in 2025 due to their growing economy, cultural and tourism appeal. These cities are investing in cultural branding, infrastructure, the digital tourism tools to attract both domestic and international travelers. An example I could cite here is Xinjiang's new tourism strategy includes a well-constructed cross-border tourism development, expanded access to scenic areas, some of which previously required special permits to gain access to, and the promotion of cultural exports and services. So all of this is really not just looking at the cultural expansion, but also the infrastructure and digital tourism tools that are being invested into to give that traveler a holistic experience.
You alluded briefly earlier to the rise as well in international flights. And very interestingly, the Chinese government have also extended their transit policy, which in a nutshell is allowing travelers from 55 countries to enter without a visa for 10 days, so long as they depart for a different country from where they came. The question is China now seemingly taking advantage of the fact that Middle East tensions have forced travelers to rethink whether they want to travel through popular transit hubs like Dubai, Doha and Abu Dhabi?
Look, I think in reference to the recent tensions in the Middle East, as we look at the aviation industry as a whole, the number one priority for aviation industry, the transport tourism industry, is to really prioritize passenger safety. So airlines have an emergency response plan to activate, alternative routes that reduces the impact and burden on travelers. So this includes the cost factor of the ticket price as well as safety of travelers. That said, China was strategically leveraging global transit shifts to position itself as a more attractive and stable transit hub for international travelers. But this also includes hubs like Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, where they have the airport capacity to bring in, large amount of flight arrivals, but also to accommodate some of the bigger aircraft like your 380 and 350. And not many airports have the runway and capacity to accommodate that on the level of frequency these airports are operating. So Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, China are key aviation hubs for the Asian region, and that's the benefit that the government has really positioned itself as.
China could also conceivably be exploiting a gap that's been left in the tourism market as a result of the United States, which it is currently engaging in a trade war with, tightening visa rules. Overseas travel to the U.S., just to throw you some numbers, has dropped 2.5% through April this year as compared to a year ago, according to reports. The largest drop of 10% happening in March after Trump announced tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and incidentally China. So is the U.S. has lost China's gain in this sense?
I would say it is actually Asia's gain as a whole. I think, China's visitor arrival numbers for the first half of 2025 speaks for itself, with cities like Shanghai really seeing those record-breaking overseas arrivals. But this is how the tourism sector works. When we see softness in travel in a certain destination, governments and tourism authorities will play a critical role in attracting and promoting tourism initiatives to their countries, right? We saw, a currency play a factor where the softening of the dollars were attracting travelers to different destinations where they were getting value for their travel spend, and also against current economic climate, the spending power of global travelers and currency conversion, the seasons have all really changed. I think Expedia conducted a consumer survey, which also revealed that travelers today book a trip based on their personal interest. We saw TV tourism rise. The effect of White Lotus saw tons of travelers go to Koh Samui. We saw music tourism with the Swiftie effect, wherever famous artists were performing, travelers were then going. Japan was the number one global trending destination for close to 2 years post-pandemic for their cultural reasons and the weakening of the yen. So ultimately, tourism will rebound quickly. The U.S. has major sporting events to host in 2026, and we're optimistic to see those passenger numbers evolve. I think there's a lot more contributing factors to this beyond just what's happening in the U.S. today. I think currency and spending power and economic climate has contributed to it.
Yeah, so a lot of growth potential on the tourism front, not just for China, but for the remainder of Asia as well. Let's hone in on the final question here. It's more of a macro question. The Chinese economy has been suffering from sluggish consumer spending, a struggling property sector, high youth unemployment, among a host of other difficulties. What kind of impacts will these measures and this proliferation in tourism numbers have on uplifting the domestic economy, you think?
Look, China's aggressive tourism revival strategy is already having measurable impacts on its domestic economy, offering a much-needed boost amid the property market instability and sluggish growth. In 2025, China's travel and tourism sector is projected to contribute 13.7 trillion yuan to the national economy, 10.3% above pre-pandemic levels. This is significant. This surge is helping stimulate domestic consumption, especially in services like hospitality, retail, transport, which are key to offsetting weak real estate demand. The tourism is a core lever in supporting this growth while the government works to stabilize the housing market. But the driving, foot traffic to second and third city is what the country is really focusing on. Bringing in the inbound tourism alone could contribute to a significant portion of China's GDP. So the sector is expected to support over, 83 million jobs in 2025. So we'll see that, that evolution really take effect, not just on the property market, but China's tourism growth and economy as a whole.
Yeah, it didn't look bright when the pandemic significantly impacted international arrivals, but China has implemented some serious measures like visa-free policies and more to attract more foreign visitors, and as a result is experiencing a very strong rebound. Lavinia Rajaram, Asia travel expert at Expedia Group, has been explaining why. Thank you so much for your time, Lavinia.
You're welcome.
Have a good day. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.